Rabbi Yaakov Moskowitz serves as the Director of Community Learning in Yeshivas Torah and Torah Semis in North Miami Beach. He's well known for his practical and engaging shiurim, lectures, and inspirational videos that are shared via platforms such as Torah Anytime, WhatsApp, Klappenstein Hearing Foundation, Hadera, and more. He's also the founder of Growth Through Our Gedolim project that produces powerful videos about Torah leaders that have uplifted Jews around the world. As well, Rabbi Moskowitz is a life coach that assists individuals transforming their relationships, confidence, and overall lives to the greatest version of themselves. Thank you so much, Rabbi Moskowitz.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, first off, thank you very much, Mrs. Weiss, for that introduction, and thank you very much to everybody involved with the Amat organization for inviting me to be able to share some thoughts with the incredible crowd over here. It is such a mitzvah to see so many people coming from all around the country, taking off time, taking off question time from your families, from your work, to be able to come here to have the opportunity to get things together. Everybody, I'm assuming, just having this energy here in this room over these 2 days, everybody together, people who are like-minded, doing the same thing, the same avoda, whether it be in New York or whether it be in Maryland or whether it be in Florida, it makes no difference. It's all the same avoda. Coming together as a group to get different chizuk, to come together, to get chizuk from each other, it's really an amazing thing. So a big yashikah to all of you for taking time to do that, and a big yashikah to the Amat team for allowing me to come and to share some thoughts. So, it's funny, in the summertime, so my wife and I had the opportunity to spend the summers in a summer camp in upstate New York, in Camp Sternberg, a girls' camp over there. We have some representation over here, I see, from Camp Sternberg. We've been there for the last number of years, and so every once in a while, when we're in the camp, so they asked me to share some words, to share some thoughts with the girls. So there's one particular Shabbos a few years ago where I'm scheduled to speak at a Shalosh Shuvah speech to the oldest division. So Friday night, I'm heading into the Suda with my wife, and this girl with Down syndrome, who's part of the Down syndrome, part of the special needs camp over there, she comes running over to me, and she goes, Rabbi Moskowitz, is it true that you're the speaker tomorrow in Shalosh Shuvah? Is that true? That's what I heard. And I said, yes, that's true. I'm the speaker at the Shalosh Shuvah speech. And she said, oh, I'm so happy. I found you. Is there something, I have a favor that I want to ask you. Is it possible? Can I ask you a favor? And I said, well, of course, Fabio. I'm thinking, what's she going to ask? Maybe she wants me to share over her favorite story. I don't know, maybe she wants me to talk about a particular topic, a certain issue. I have no idea. Maybe she wants a shout out. And I said, whatever it is, Fabio, ask me. Of course, I'm happy to do the favor. And she looks at me with this seriousness in her face and in her eyes, and this stern look. She looks up and she says, Rabbi Moskowitz, could you please keep it short? It was a rather funny moment, to tell you the truth. But and then she went out and said, meanwhile, I look up and I see her counselor. She's running from the distance. She's like, Mikey, no, don't say it. And then she comes over and she explained to me, she said, sometimes the speakers, they come and they speak too long, but by Shalosh Shuvah, I love it. By Shalosh Shuvah, I love the Zmiros. That's the part that I love the most, the Zmiros and the singing and everybody all together. So she said, please, I just want to sing the Zmiros. so he said, what made me call on them, right? So, I'm making the oven. So, B'ezras Hashem, we're going to keep it. They told me 45 minutes. So, B'ezras Hashem, we're going to keep it down. We're going to learn a very important life lesson from Bible. But today's topic is bringing Hashem into our students' reality. And I'm saying that that's really the foundation of everything. And certainly everything that Amat stands for is the foundation of everything, right? Bringing Hashem into our lives, into our students' reality. And call it Avod. to those who founded this beautiful organization, on that principle of making Hashem real, bringing Hashem to the fore. There's a story told about a certain Rav who was a guest in a shul. He was giving a speech, and the speech was scheduled to start at 9 p.m. and it was supposed to end at 10 p.m. right in time for Mareh. 10 p.m. was Mareh. And he was talking about this topic, and he's going on talking to the Kehillah about connecting to Hashem, developing a relationship with the Borei Olam, connecting to our Creator, connecting to Hashem. And meanwhile, he's going on and on and on, and he was so passionate about the talk, but all of a sudden, it was not only 10 o'clock, but it was 10:02, 10:03, 10:04. He's getting into, he's screaming, connect to Hashem, right? Connect, passion, devoted to Hashem, a historical relationship with Hashem, connect, going on and on. And 10:06, and there's a fellow in the back of the shul who's getting really agitated as the minutes are going on and on and on. He just can't handle it. And finally, at 10:08, after hearing all this connecting Hashem relationship, the fellow in the back just can't handle it anymore. He screams out. And he goes, enough with connecting with Hashem already! We have to stop the marriage! It's a cute story. But the point is very real, sadly. That the disconnect that exists in the world between connecting to Hashem, between developing a relationship with Hashem, and a marriage, or a chakras, or mincha, or any of the other mitzvahs that we have, is unfortunately something that is so real. I heard in a talk a number of years ago from Rabbi Shaya Cohen, one of the greatest Chacham of our time, the founder of Priority One. Rabbi Shaya Cohen was talking to a group of serious yeshiva guys, and he said the following thing, and I remember it resonated so deeply with me when he said it. He said, we could go and learn 3 Siddurim a day. We could daven with a minyan 3 times a day. We could make over 100 brachas every single day, and we could do this for days, for weeks, and for months. And sadly, never once think about the Ribono Shel Olam. It's a sad reality that exists. But it goes a step further. I read an article from a frum woman, a regular frum woman, who was saying how much pride she was taking in raising her daughter, and how when her daughter was starting to learn about brachas in school, she was so excited, and she was making brachas with her at the table, in the house, etc. It was so beautiful as the mitzvahs were going on. She was teaching it to her daughter. But then she said the following thing that I quote from the article. She says, even as I watched my little girl's Jewish habits with such pride, I began to realize, however, that I wasn't talking to her about Jewish ideas. In fact, the notion of doing so made me oddly uncomfortable. In a conversation with her school psychologist about how to address certain behavioral challenges, the psychologist asked whether we ever talked to her about Hashem, and I had to say no. I stumbled over my words, realizing as we talked that I probably should be talking more about Hashem if I hope to raise a religiously mindful and committed individual that I really didn't want to. When my daughter began coming home telling me things she had learned about Hashem at school, I recoiled, and I didn't know why. As a believing, committed, observant Jew, why didn't I want to talk to my child about beliefs and the roots of my commitment? Why was it that I found such value in teaching her the rituals and the habits of observance, but shy away from introducing her to the meaning behind those behaviors? Was this an indication that my own observance was empty of meaning? That there was something lacking in the connection to Hashem that shouldn't have been inspiring the way I lived my life? Had I fallen into a life of intellectual Torah study and practical Torah observance without the spiritual faith? And after talking to a good friend, I came up with 2 answers. First, as painful as it was to admit, yes, God was in some ways missing from my life. In the circles in which I spent most of my formative years, there was often an odd discomfort with talking about Hashem. We believe in Hashem, but we are afraid to encounter Him. Even in discussions about meaningful spiritual experiences, I would rarely hear Hashem mentioned explicitly. We're uncomfortable. We might learn Tanakh, Gemara, philosophy with vigor, but don't necessarily translate that intellectual connection into the emotional realm. This is from a regular frum woman writing an article. Rabbi Shai Cohen's beautiful pamphlet that he gave to a bunch of Machanim a number of years ago called To Instill Living Emunah in a Lasting Generation. He writes in his introduction that sadly, an issue that is facing our world today, whether we want to admit it or not, but is the issue of frum adults going off the derech, frum adults living the regular frum life, but then veering off. And he said that we find them in a variety of situations. Some get divorced, others stay married and go through the motions, at least in front of their families, and yet others openly exhibit their violations of halakha. And the sad truth seems to be that we are only becoming aware of a small part of this problem, and the numbers seem to be growing. And he said the logical conclusion would seem to be that we must inform educators and parents that these issues do in fact exist, and guide them to be better equipped to prevent them in the future. And through his research and through his involvement with this institution, Priority One, Rabbi Cohen interviewed and met with and spoke with numerous people who, unfortunately, took on this path. And he said that this is what they are saying as far as the reasons why they went off, or the reasons why they left the fold. He says a whole bunch, and I'm not going to list all of them to you now in the interest of time, but I want to list to you 3 of them that are very, very, very important. He said that we never really understood what Yiddishkeit is all about. We didn't have a context with which to appreciate it, and there was so much that didn't seem to make sense on the surface. So much time was spent and emphasis was put on davening and learning, but we never really appreciated it or understood why. He said, they also said that we feel a certain emptiness inside. We never felt a close relationship with the Creator that might have been able to alleviate this feeling. We never understood what Yiddishkeit is really about. We spoke about the rituals, as the lady said in the article. We speak about the mitzvahs. We know about the mitzvahs. That's incredible. It's beautiful. And wash on the tilas yadayim, and davening, beautiful, incredible. That's what we need to teach them, of course. But it's really about what's happening in the underpinnings. What is really going on? What is this religion about? What is Yiddishkeit about? What does it mean to be a Torah Jew? That's what they felt was lacking. And that's why they ultimately ended up leaving the fold. So, the point is clear, that we have to do something about this, and this is a powerful room right here. A powerful room of incredible people that are saving Klal Yisrael, people that are out there and educating and uplifting and inspiring the Talmidim to the next generation. And it is so critical to understand and to help our Talmidos, and our children, of course, to develop this understanding of what Yiddishkeit is really about. I don't think that there's anything that I'm going to say in the next, what do we have? I have to keep back in mind. In the next 30 minutes or so, that is going to be a chiddush to anybody. I don't think so. But we know, the Mesilas Yesharim says in his introduction, that it is so important to constantly review, to talk about the basics over and over again, to give ourselves chisel. You know, the Gemara in Shabbat tells us the famous story about the ger who wants to convert, and he went over to Shammai, and he said, Shammai, can you convert me and teach me the entire Torah, al regel achas? And Shammai told him to go his merry way. But then he went over to Hillel, and he asked Hillel the same question. And Hillel said the following thing. Hillel said the famous words, "Da'olav sani l'chavre l'osadid." That which your friend is that which is distasteful to your friend, that your friend doesn't like, don't do. Right? Don't do. Right? That which is distasteful to you, don't do to your friend. And he says, "Zuhi kol ha-Torah kula." This is the entire Torah. V'idach perushahu, zil gemor, and everything else is perish. Go and learn it. And without seeing Rashi, it's very difficult to understand how this could possibly be the entire Torah when you don't like it to your friend. Really, that's the entire Torah. But Rashi says, famously, that the friend that's being referred to in this Gemara is not referring necessarily to a typical friend, but this is referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Rashi says that Hillel was teaching him that not to disobey Hashem's commandments, to not do that which is distasteful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what we should stay away from. That's what we should stay away from. And Zuhi Kol HaTorah Kula. This is the entire Torah. Everything else is Midrash. Everything else is explanation. And Rav Shai Cohen pointed out, he said, that's the entire Torah. The entire Torah, as says Hillel, is understanding the relationship, is understanding that our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is a relationship, is understanding him within the context of a friendship, That is what it means to understand Yiddishkeit. Zuhi Kol HaTorah Kula. This is a relationship. Zuhi Kol HaTorah Kula. This is the entire Torah. And what does it mean that everything else is a perishable Torah? That means that all the mitzvahs that we have in the Torah, everything is our means by which we develop, by which we foster, by which we further that relationship with the Borei Olam. Everything. And that's super critical. Shabbos, Tefillah, Brachas, all the mitzvahs. But those are the means by which we develop, by which we foster and we build that relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. But Zuhi Kol HaTorah Kula is understanding that relationship with the Borei Olam. That's really what this is all about. And David HaMelech says this into Hillel, kirvas Elokim litov. Closeness with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's what's considered good. That's everything. That's what David HaMelech's everything was. And that's the same thing when it comes to our children. The first thing that we have to know in being able to build this and being able to develop this within our children is that the concept of emunah, belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, emunah is not something that is black and white. We teach it at a very young age. We teach it from an intellectual perspective, and of course we should. But emunah is not something that you got in your notes. Emunah comes in very, very levels. There's an incredible story that I saw about how Rav Volbe Zatzal went to go visit Rav Chatzkel Levenstein. Rav Volbe was Rosh Shiva in Yerushalayim, and Rav Chatzkel Levenstein was the Mashgiach the Panovich B'nai Brak. And Rav Volbe went to go visit him to talk to him about one of his talmidim, a certain issue he was having. And when he got there, he discussed the issue with Rav Chatzkel, and at the end of the conversation, and the story didn't record exactly what happened in the conversation, but at the end of the conversation, Rav Chatzkel said to Rav Volbe the following. He said, tell me, do you know that there's a Borei Olam? And Rav Volbe was like, what? Huh? A little shocked, like what exactly is he asking? Of course I know that there's a Borei Olam. So he answered Rav Chatzkel, yes, of course, there's a Borei Olam. And Rav Chatzkel said, I want you to understand my question. Do you really know that there is a Borei Olam that created everything in the world, everything in existence? Do you really know that there's a Borei Olam? And again, Rav Volbe is shocked. Thinks, I don't know that there's a Borei Olam, right? Of course I know, that's basics. It's kindergarten. So he just answered. This time he answered with a little more confidence. And he said, yes, I know that there's Borei Olam. So Rav Chatzkel told him, he said, okay, beautiful. Now take that lesson and go back to your Talmidim and go teach your Talmidim that there's the Borei Olam. And Rav Volbe got in his car and he was driving back to Yerushalayim and he had no clue what this conversation was about. What on earth was Rav Chatzkel telling me? And the way the story is written over is that it took him 2 weeks. Rav Volbe was thinking about this for 2 weeks until he finally understood. That Rav Chatzkel wasn't questioning me if I believed that there is a Borei Olam. Of course he understood. Of course he knew that I believed, and I had emunah, that there's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He said, but Rav Chatzkel understood that there's so many levels when it comes to emunah. And he was asking me, I know that you believe it, but do you really believe it? Do you really believe it and feel it in your heart of heart, in your kishkas? Do you really understand emotionally that there is a Boreol, that you feel it, that you're walking through life, that you're living it every single time you're davening, every place that you go, every time that you live, that you feel it in your inner self. Wow, I feel the Boreol so strongly. Because that's not something that's so obvious and so simple. And that's what he was telling me to go back and to give to my Talmidim. And Rav Volpe said that, you see, from what Rav Chatzkel was telling me, is that there's so many levels. And it requires more discussion, more chazara, more review, bringing it more home to each and every single one of our students and our children. Making that lesson deeper and deeper and deeper, so that we not only know that there's the Borei Olam, but that we feel the Borei Olam. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter famously said that the farthest distance in the world is from the mind to the heart, from the intellect to the emotion. We all know that there's the Borei Olam, and all of our students do. As Rabbi Chanan Wasserman famously said, everybody, there's no such thing as a kofar. We're going to talk about that momentarily. Very few, right? Everybody knows intellectually, but emotionally, do we feel it? Emotionally, do they really, really, really live life with that passion, with that understanding, with that connection to the Boreal? So how do we do it? How do we inspire this? How do we teach this? How do we build this emotional feeling of emunah within our children? So I'm going to present three ideas. First off, the Rambam. The Rambam asks the question, he says, what's the derech? What's the path? What do we do if we want to build ahava and yira of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And this is what the Rambam says. He says, B'shashi yitzboni in ha'adam b'maisa b'beruah ha'nifloim ha'gedolim. When a person is mitzvoning, when they think about the wondrous creations of this world, beruah ha'nifloim, the incredible world in all its details that we live in, the Yiraman Chachmaso, and they see the tremendous Chachma of HaKadosh Baruch Hu looking around in the world, looking around in nature. She'ein la'erech elokit, that there's no end to the vastness and the beauty and the detail of the world. Now listen to the next word of the Rambam. He says, miyad, immediately. What happens to that person who ohev, who mishabeach, who mefoyer, who misach, a taifa gedola? Leida Hashem Hagadol. Immediately, miyad, that person comes to love and to praise and to have a taifa gedola, to come close to the Ribono Shel Olam. How? By understanding, by looking at the beauty of our world, by looking at the detail, by seeing the intricacy and seeing the Yad Hashem so clearly. You know, there was a famous atheist by the name of Anthony Flew. Now, Anthony Flew was a professor at Oxford University. And he got up while teaching in Oxford, and he would proclaim publicly the lack of evidence of God in the world. In fact, in 1984, he published a book called The Presumption of Atheism. And Anthony Flew claimed in that book that the starting point is that there's no God in the world. And if you want to claim such a thing, then you're going to have to prove it, because the starting point is there's no basis, there's no scientific evidence, there's no proof that there's a God in the world. Well, in 2004, on December 9th, Anthony Flew was 81 years old. And the Associated Press published that this famous, brilliant atheist got up and he renounced his atheism. And he declared his previous books obsolete. And they asked him at the age of 81, what is it? What did it? What got you to change your mind after living a life of atheism, preaching atheism? What is it that did it? And listen to what he said. He said that I began to really study the design of the world. And I concluded that superintelligence is the only good explanation for the origin of life and the complexity of nature. What got this atheist to change his mind was the fact that he actually started looking at the world and analyzing it, and realizing the vastness, realizing the detail. You know, when the Voyager 1 was sent out, it started traveling in 1977. So they sent it out into outer space, traveling at a speed of 35,000 miles an hour. And the Voyager 1 only left the Milky Way galaxy in 2012. 1977, traveling till 2012, 35,000 miles an hour, and then it just left our galaxy then. And that's just the Milky Way galaxy. There are estimated over 100 billion galaxies in the known universe. What that means, I have no idea. I have no clue. I cannot imagine. 100, right? I can't even imagine between here and New York. Yeah, I drive it every single summer. It's very difficult. It is a long trip. So, right, 100 billion galaxies? 100 billion galaxies? Unbelievable. The vastness of the world is so incredible. The birth of a baby, the creation of a human being, goes from one cell to 15 trillion cells. 15 trillion cells in a matter of 9 months. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But I saw an incredible article by Rabbi Vincent Schaefer who pointed out the following. He said that while we've heard this stuff a million times, we've all heard this a million times, he said the question begs to be asked, why don't we feel what the Rambam says? Why don't we feel this? And this overwhelming love of Hashem. And his answer is, he says, because we just take these things for granted. They're part of our daily lives that we are used to. To live meaningfully, we need to renew a sense of freshness in what we experience. We need to put back the wow factor in our lives. And when we do, we have an unending source of inspiration. We are able to constantly see Hashem in front of us. You know, my uncle, Rabbi Shlomo Yonatan Harris, he was traveling from New York, from JFK to Eretz Yisrael, number of years back. And he said that when he got there in Ben Gurion, so they were like waiting on the, they were waiting over there in the runway before they got out of the plane. And he said the way that they were going to take people off the plane was that they had this relatively newer thing that they were using that was kind of like this hydraulic lift, okay, that was there, and they're going to go stand on it, and then goes up and down and up and down. And then next they take you over to the gate of the airport. And he said that when people saw this, everybody was like packed over to the windows, like watching this really cool invention. This hydraulic lift going up and down, and it's so cool. He's like, wow, it's amazing. And he thought to himself, time out. Everybody's so excited, but we just traveled on an airplane from JFK to Tel Aviv, thousands and thousands of miles over the water. Unbelievable, an incredible speed, an incredible height, with amazing comfort. And everyone's all excited about this thing, which is the same technology that they have to mechanic. They put their car up and down. Everyone's so excited about that, but what about the plane? What about the plane that we just went on? We have to put the wow factor back into the world, back into what we see, helping ourselves and helping our students really understand what the Rambam is telling us. That when we tap into that, and tap into the beauty and the detail and the intricacy of the world, then the Rambam said, immediately, a person comes to love and a person comes to feel this close connection that goes forward. So point number one is bringing the detail and the beauty of the world back into our world, back into our lessons, back into our students. Point number two is hakaras hatov. You know, if I were to challenge everybody in the room to make a list of the 5 most stubborn people to ever exist in the history of the world. Don't stop yourself on the list, okay? I'm not asking that. But if you had to make the 5 most stubborn people to ever exist, I would assume that everybody in the room would have paro somewhere on the top 5 of that list. Somewhere. Maybe even number 1. I would say number 1. Paro on Russia. So stubborn. Let Collins Israel go, let them go. Tamaka. No, I'm not going to let them go. No. Right? Such a stubborn individual. Yet, in the whole story, all of a sudden, after the 7th Makkah, the Makkah of Barba, all of a sudden out of nowhere, Paro changes his lingo, and he goes, Hashem HaTzadik v'ani b'amir Rishonim. Hashem is righteous, and me and my people are wicked. What? You? All of a sudden, you think this, Paro? Then you and your people are Rishon, and Hashem is a tzaddik, we basically did tshuva, to the extent that the Chizkuni says that he did such a tshuva. At that point in time, he was ready to let all of Yisrael go. Mamish ready to let them go. Only reason he did was because Hashem made his heart heavy at the beginning of the next heart, but besides for that, he would have let Klal Yisrael go. He did a full tshuva at that point in time. Hashem outside, Hashem is righteous, and me and my people are wicked. What could possibly get this stubborn individual to have done that, to have said that, and say such a thing? And many of the Rishonim learned the following, and I'm just going to repeat to you, I'm just going to say over here what the Riva says. Unbelievable. He says that Paro, after the Makkah Barak, he reflected on the Makkah. And he reflected on what happened at the beginning of the Makkah. And at the beginning of the Makkah, Hashem gave him a very special warning. And he said, if you bring in your cattle inside, then it won't get destroyed. You bring in your cattle and there's things inside, it won't get destroyed. But if you leave it outside, then it will get destroyed. Special warning. Bring your stuff inside and it won't get destroyed. Did Paro listen? No, he didn't listen. But says the Riva, upon reflecting on this, Paro said that, wow, Hashem gave me the special warning to bring in my cattle. That's what caused him to say, Hashem Atzadik, Shegomar alai chesed. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for me a chesed. He thought about it. Whoa! It became very real. Hashem did chesed for me. Hashem likes me. Hashem loves me. Hashem cares about me. Lahazhirani al shali, to warn me about my stuff, about my things. Ve'ani va'ani ha'rishonim shalosamnu le'ibun baruch ha'tovim. And me and my people are wicked because we did not focus our hearts on these wonderful good words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for us. Shegomar alai chesed. That he did a chesed for me. What got Paro, the most stubborn individual to ever exist, to do teshuvah, to come close to the Ribono Shalom, to admit that there's a God, to want to connect to Hashem, to want to let Klal Yisrael go, was the fact that he recognized the chesed that was done for him. How big was that chesed? It wasn't such a big chesed. It's a small chesed Hashem did for him. He gave him a warning. But that small chesed pierced him deep within his heart. And that caused him to have this emotional reaction to want to admit that there's a Borei Olam and to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The more that we recognize the Chesed Hashem in the world, and the more Hakar Satov that we have, in turn, the more that we feel a closeness and a desire to come close to Hashem. The way that Chaim Friedlander, the Sitzei Chaim Zatzal, understands it, he says that it's like a trigger. And we all have to understand this as far as our students. It's so important to know that when it comes to human nature is such that Hakar Satov is built into the human nature, that as soon as we feel something good that was done to us by somebody else, we automatically, immediately, it's like a switch. We automatically want to give back to that other person. He says that it's human nature. It's mamish built into human nature. You don't have to work on it. You don't have to recreate it. It's not like some people have to meet it and some people don't. No! Everybody has that midah. All that we have to do is to allow ourselves to tap into it and to help our students, to help our children tap into it. You know, there was a powerful story. There was a powerful story that was going around during COVID. When it took place in Italy, in which there was a 94-year-old man who was taken to the hospital. He was on a respirator for 2 days. And when he left the hospital and he was discharged, they handed him a bill for 4,000 euro. And immediately he started to cry. And the nurses and the secretaries, the people that were there at the desk were starting to get a little bit uncomfortable, and he's crying, and what do we do? So after a few moments, they said to him, they said, sir, is there, whatever we can do to help you, we can come up with a payment plan, we can figure this out, I'm sorry, it's too much, whatever, let's talk it out, let's have a conversation. And he said, no, he said, that's not the reason why I'm crying. He said, I can pay the 4,000 euro, I have no problem with that. But the reason why I'm crying is because when you handed me that bill for 4,000 euro, and I see so clearly on this bill the cost of what I have to pay to be able to get on a machine to breathe for just 2 days. It caused me to realize, wow, what do I owe God for giving me the ability to breathe without a machine for every single day for the last 94 years of my life. 4,000 euro for 2 days, wow. what I must owe God. And that individual at that moment had a very powerful, powerful moment in recognition of Hakaras Tov. We have certain Gedolim who lived with this feeling. There was a cute story. Our Victor Miller Zatzah was going on one of his walks. He used to often take walks throughout Brooklyn, and he was going on one of his walks, and all of a sudden he noticed that his daughter was coming towards him the other way. And as he sees her as she's approaching, he says, oh, you know, it's an amazing thing that I see you now, because I was just thinking about you since I was just thanking Hashem on my walk over the fact that you're married. And she looks at him and she says, you know, Tati, I mean, that's very nice and all, but I've been married for the last 40 years. So you're thinking of now, what? And when Victor Miller looked at her with a serious look on his face, he said, yeah, of course. He said, I thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu every single day over the fact that you are married. Every single day for the last 40 years, I thank the Borei Olam for giving me that gift. Rabbi Victor Miller lived with it. He lived with that feeling, with that understanding of HaKaras Tov. And the more that we get into this point number 2 of HaKaras Tov, we see that it's true by Paro. Allah has come, this is true by all of us. Tremendous tzaddikim, all of your talmidos, who are all of beautiful neshamas and such a chelik Elokai Yimah that they want to connect, they want to tap into it. What we have to do is help them recognize the Hakaras Tov, recognize all the good that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving them in their life. How do we do that? Well, the more that we embed it, and the more that we bring it in to the classroom, when you overhear students, when we overhear our children talking about the good things that they got, whether it be the vacation, whether it be the Hanukkah gift, whatever it is, bringing in that language, reminding constantly that these are gifts from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, gifts from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It happens automatically. As soon as we feel it, as soon as we know and understand that this is a gift from somebody, then in turn we want to give back. I saw a beautiful article by Abel Sharpman, who was talking about this concept. And in his article, he brings up Dr. Stephen Covey's famous idea of the emotional bank account, where he said that in general, right, when we want to build a relationship with anybody, we have to build up that emotional bank account. What does that mean? That the more positive that exists in that relationship, okay, so then, a person is able to take out later on. It's like a regular bank account. The more money that's in there, the more that you're able to take out later on when you need to. So the more positive that there is in a relationship, so then if a person needs to take out, it doesn't really hit you as much if a person takes out later on from that bank account. He said it's the same thing when it comes to Hakaras Tov. The more that we help our students feel Hakaras Tov, the more that they recognize all the great gifts that they have from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the more that it builds up, that emotional bank account towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu builds up more, and then they feel it in such a solid way. They feel that connection to Hashem, they feel that gratitude. And then when Hashem has to take something out, when Hashem has to bring about a challenge, bring about a difficult circumstance for themselves, or for their family, or for Klal Yisrael, and they feel it and they begin to question why. It's a much softer blow, says Rabbi Sharfman, because it's coming from a perspective, it's couched within a world of having this beautiful appreciation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and all that Hashem does for us. Towards the end of his life, Rav Shimon Schwab had lost, I believe it was Rav Shimon, not sure if it was Rav Shimon Schwab or the other Rav Schwab, but either way, had lost functioning in his legs. And he was being taken to shul in a wheelchair by his grandson. And at a certain point in the walk, the grandson looked up the courage to ask him. He said, Zaidi, do you ever have tightness on Hashem? Do you ever question Hashem? Do you ever get upset at Hashem over the fact that you're losing your functioning in your legs? Wow, powerful question. Rav Schwab answered in as follows. He said, let me tell you a mashal. He said, imagine if somebody gave you a gift of $20 million. Wow, incredible gift. And then the next day they come back to you and they say, I'm sorry, I made a little mistake with the gift. It was only supposed to be 19 million and not 20 million. So I need to take back $1 million. I hope that's okay. He said, would anybody in their right mind have any kindness on because you're taking away $1 million from me? It's not fair, it's not right. No, of course not. You gave me a gift of $19 million. Net gain of $19 million in my bank account. And wow, anybody who that happened to would be so filled with emotion and excitement and happiness and thanks. Like Kara said, right? To that individual for the gift of $19 million, $20 million, take back. You made a mistake. Doesn't matter. $19 million. Wow, what a gift. Schwab said that's the way that I feel towards the Lord alone. HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed me with a life where I have arms, I have a mouth to talk, I have a brain to think, I have all of my things and organs functioning so incredibly. And I had my legs for so many years. Kilo HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me $20 million. Now he has to take back $1 million. How can I attain this in glory? I'm so thankful. Wow, what a net gain. What an incredible perspective. And of course it takes a gadol to have that perspective, and we can't expect our students to have that perspective so easily. But as our little sharpen road, the more that we build up that emotional bank account, the more that you're able to create lessons, create programs, create whatever it is, discussion in the classroom, that fosters that feeling within our children of gratitude towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu for every single thing that they have. So then they're going to come back immediately, just like Kara did. Just like Kara, if you have that Kara, certainly by our Talmidos, to have that feeling, that overwhelming feeling towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So point number 2 is Hakar Satov and developing that feeling. Point number 3. Hashgacha practice, of course. The Chazon Ish wrote, B'nogea Talmidim, he said the following thing. He was talking to, I believe the conversation was with a certain Machana who was, and it didn't say over here, the article that I was reading, what exactly the conversation was about. But the Chazon Ish said the following. He said that one thing that is mashpia ma'od al le'vrach, the one thing that has such a tremendous hashpah on soft hearts, on the hearts of the young, is lahashrish b'levavos emuna b'hashgacha pratis, to take root within their hearts, emuna in hashgacha pratis. That students, that children should know she'ein hefker ba'olam, says the Chazon Ish, that there's no hefker in the world. Hakol misnayel b'hashgacha. Every single thing in the world is run by Hashgacha pratis. You're able to daven about everything. And he concludes, he says, Ha'ikr, hu osa parsha kitana, shekol gufei Torah tevuyim ba. The ikr is this one small parsha, this one small discussion. Hashgacha pratis. Says the Chazon Ish, that's the ikr in which the entire Torah is totally in that. In understanding Hashgacha pratis. Rav Nosson Meir Bachvogel, the late Mashgiach, I'm sorry, said the following thing. He said that if a person doesn't search out and doesn't open their eyes to try to see Hashgacha pratis in their life, so they're lo yira Hashgacha, then they're not going to see it. V'lo yifid Hashgacha, they're not going to live a life with Hashgacha. And they're not going to know what Hashgacha is. If a person doesn't open their eyes and actively, proactively look to find Hashgacha pratis within their lives, then they'll see it. He says if a person actually searches out to see it, miyad yira Hashgacha, immediately they'll come to see that Hashgacha. And it's something that is so critical and so important for us to develop and for us to build in. When we first moved down to Florida, about, I think it's 10 years ago. So I was at that point in time, so in the yeshiva that I worked in, so at that point in time I was teaching 8th grade boys. And so we had a program that still goes on these days, such a beautiful program that one of the Rebbe, he actually happened to be my son's Rebbe this year in the 6th grade, his name is Rabbi Shai, came off incredible resource. He created a program called the HP Connection, a Shlomo Prantis Connection. And what he would do is for, I think, about 5 or 6 weeks out of the year, he would put these papers in the hallway, okay? And the paper set on the top HP Connection had a whole bunch of empty lines. And the basic idea was that if you write over a Shlomo Prantis story that happened to you, that you personally experienced over the course of that week, then on one particular day during lunch, he's given out children. Okay? Free ball of children if you write a Shlomo Prantis story that happened to you over the course of the week. Now, one day when I saw this going on, I didn't know what this was all about. I just saw, that was brand new, I just saw this big pot of children. And I'm telling you, I forgot my lunch that day, and I was so hungry. So I went over to him, and I said, Rabbi, he's like dishing out the children. I said, Rabbi, can I get a bowl of children? Can I get a bowl? I'm starving. Can I get a bowl of children? I was finished teaching. He says to me, he goes, did you write a story? I said, what? I said, can I just have a bowl of children? I'm so hungry. I just finished teaching. I didn't have what? He goes, take the paper, you gotta write a story. I said, what are you talking about? He said, listen, he said, the person who sponsored this program, he made this program ought to deny that the children is only given to those that write the story. Students and teachers, everybody, it doesn't make a difference. You gotta write stories. All right, so I took out a piece of paper, I'm starving, I gotta write a story. And I sat down and I did the exercise, and it was unbelievable. I shot a butt side, I shot a butt story this week. Why? I shot a butt story this week. Yeah, well, you did. You just have to think about it. And the more that I started to think about it, because I was desperate for that children, I was able to write it in a box and go, wow.
Why wasn't that your Ashkafa story?
That's something.
That's a good point. You know what? I didn't write it. I'm going to go back to next week. Identical children. Thank you. So, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, the exercise, once you start to really think about it. Now, once a person starts to proactively find HaKadosh Baruch Hu in their lives, okay? Whether it be the fact that, by the way, after doing this, and I started thinking about this more, this happens in our lives all the time. We just have to be attuned to it. Happened to me a year or so ago. I got a flat tire, and was able to make it. Got a flat tire on the way home, but was able to make just like that. Was able to make it to my driveway. Wow! What a Shlomo Prantis! That got the other bowl, right? So what a Shlomo Prantis! The more and more we help our students tap into it, the more of an effect it's going to have. And of course, it's very powerful for them to hear stories about Shlomo Prantis, about other people. And for them to hear from their principals and from their moros, stories of Shlomo Prantis that happened to them. But like we just said, the most powerful thing is if the student feels the Shlomo Prantis on their own. And if we're able to bring that out within them through ideas like this, HP Connection, and etc., others, and Mrs. Hashem, they will be able to feel that Shlomo on their own. Okay? So just some last and final thoughts, and then we'll hold it. Just some tips. It's very important to bring Hashem into the conversation. Rabbi Shai Cohen talks about this, I was mentioning earlier. He actually quoted, I don't remember who it was a certain Rebbe or a certain Gadol, I don't remember. But he quoted somebody who, when he was teaching Gemara to boys, whenever he would come up with a phrase, you'd see a phrase in the Gemara, quoting one of the Amoraim, Amar Rava, Amar Abaye, he wouldn't translate it as Amar Rava. The way he would translate it to the students is Amar Rava. Rava says that Hashem says, and then he would go on to say what Rava said. Amar Abaye says that Hashem says, and then he would go on. And at first I thought about this, and I realized that, yeah, okay, come on, it's a little weird, right? It's like it feels a little weird.
Men.
What? The men, yeah, you're right. But then, once it starts happening, and once that language starts being discussed, and once we start using it in the classroom in bigger ways, it becomes normal, and to students become their norm. They start to really feel that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. Okay? Davening. How do we talk about davening? How do we talk about davening? It's time to daven now, everyone. It's time to talk to Hashem. It's time for us to connect to Hashem. It's time for us to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. in Moden, for all the things he gave us. It's time for us to ask that Kadosh Baruch Hu for the different things we have. But when the Chayil says, the Chayil Migdal halacha, okay, then as far as teaching davening, being able to inculcate davening, it's important to emphasize and encourage that people have a personal request. And students should have a personal request for them to say at the end of davening, before the Yom Raza, to have a personal request to make it real, to teach the lesson, to be able to make it real. Okay? And the concept of a relationship with Hashem needs to be constantly used in the classroom. Constantly used. Bez Hashem, through all of this, Bez Hashem, through focusing on the fact that the Rambam said that we talk about the beauty of the world, the intricacy of the world, the detail of the world. And through the fact that we focus on Hakaras HaTov and help them understand all the great gifts that they have from the Rebbeinu Shalom. And through the fact that we get them and we help them to recognize the detail and Hashkafa Pratis in every single aspect of their life, then through that, our students and Talmidos ourselves shall be elevated to be able to reach those levels of Emunah higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. B'ezras Hashem. Just like the Chatzal was teaching Rabbi in that message. And B'ezras Hashem, we can inspire them. We can inspire them. We can turn the tide. Everybody here in this room, this is a powerful room, as I mentioned before. Everybody here in this room has the ability to turn the tide on this issue of people, unfortunately, in their adulthood and certainly in their teen years, going off the derech and forgetting about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by inculcating this message, by making it real, by helping them develop that relationship, that connection with the Borei Olam and forging it, and they will have this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful life and understanding of Yiddishkeit. B'ezras Hashem. One last thing, with this wife's permission, I brought over here so if there's anybody, and a total separate note, but if there's anybody over here that in this school, I'm sure there's a Hilchos Shabbos that is being taught, 39 malachos, things like that. There's a beautiful, you can come to the afternoons if you like, my brother-in-law, my Reuben Levine, put out a sefer not too long ago that became very popular, called Shomer V'Zocher Illuminated. And it's out there, many people probably have it in their homes. It's a beautiful sefer that goes through the 39 malachos in a very clear way with beautiful illustrations, etc. Now, he's coming out with, he just came out with this the workbook and whole curriculum for school. So if anybody would like information, how to contact, how to find out, just give you the information. Yes, questions, arguments, comments, anything.
It's just a question that I feel like a lot of teenagers are having. And we have answers, but I would love to have a better answer for that. So we're talking about the relationship of davening of the teenagers in the brunch line. They sometimes feel, but I asked you already, I daven so much. And this is one of the answers. I just can't do it anymore. Just last week, there was this someone that lost her mother, and her mother said, I walked into her. She showed me her siddur. Her siddur was bad. She said, she tells her mother, I can't daven anymore. I would love to have but good answers, not when we're in the tzara after we're not answered, in general in the chinuch.
Right.
Chinuch are teaching people answers about davening. How can we build that relationship even though we're not answered?
Right.
Anyone else have questions? Yes.
That is a good question. If we start talking about it, we're going to be here until next Monday. That's the show. I think he gets into,
I just want to know this something you guys are in a little bit.
It's all about Amida here.
You're right, it's obvious, yes. It's all about a big discussion of getting into life's challenges and understanding what it's really about. It's not really about dominance. It's really about understanding the challenges that the Borei Olam puts us through and being able to have a proper way to guide our children in the service. I think that's really what it's about. And in turn, once they have that perspective, then I think it will all fall into place as far as we go. But I think it's not really about the davening. I think it's more. I think it's a broader issue, which is a big issue that needs to be discussed. Of the perspective towards the Messiah, having a healthy perspective towards understanding challenges in general. And therefore, in turn, once that healthy perspective is in place, So then people are able to understand davening. Like I have a parenting series that I give, and so one of the classes I give is about helping children to understand, having a proper perspective towards suffering and towards challenges. Because once it's so critical, because oftentimes what happens is we don't have the answer to things, we just like try to avoid it. You can't avoid it. Children, like you're saying, go through difficult times. You have to understand what an desire really is and have a real conversation with them from an intellectual perspective, but more importantly from an emotional perspective to help them really feel it. That's the regular, but that doesn't do justice. That's the